What up, what up, what up? Hi, everybody. It is the Money Match Gaming Podcast. I am here with my co host, Dan Estrata, my man, Dan Estrata. Let's get it.
Oh, damn it.
There you go. There you go. Let's get it started, man. I am your
Nice.
other co host, The Infinite, aka Lance, the CEO of Money Match Gaming. We're here to talk bad times at the El Royale. Very fun, very nice. So, what's up? If you guys are joining us from the Smash podcast or show that the album's doing, a few viewer battles, a few money matches, the giveaway and all that other stuff, then, welcome. This is a live discussion. We're going to talk about the movie. There will be spoilers. I kind of want to get that out. But then go ahead and let my co-host take it over here a little bit.
Yes. So I am the co-host. My name is Dan Estrata. Let's get right into it, man. We're talking Bad Times at the El Royale, written and directed by Drew Goddard, best known for writing and directing Cabin in the Woods, as well as a bunch of episodes for all sorts of television series, Daredevil, Good Place. He didn't direct a lot of those things, but he wrote a lot of episodes for those things. It's starring Jeff Bridges, who plays, I'll just call him the priest, Cynthia Erivo, who this is the first time I've ever seen her, but she was really good in this movie, who plays Darlene, the singer. Dakota Johnson from the 50 Shades movies. She plays Emily, who's kind of like a hippie. John Hamm, who is all sorts of things. He's in Mad Men. That's probably his most prominent thing. He plays a cop, sort of. Chris Hemsworth, who plays essentially Charles Manson. So that's the cast of this movie. And Lance, I'll give it over to you so you can give a little description.
All right, this is a small breakdown. The initial little cut, paragraph that they tell you to describe the movie. So it's right off the website and stuff like that. So several strangers, most with a secret to bury, meet in chance of Lake Tahoe El Royale, a rundown hotel with a dark past. Over the course of one night, everyone will show their true colors before everything goes to hell. Done. That easy.
Yeah.
That damn easy. So I guess I'll go into the general thoughts. I thought this movie was great. It was great. I kind of have to go into the little tidbit that we were talking about before we started up our podcast, which is this was not the movie that they said it was in the trailer. It was it was
marketed as like a whodunit type, mystery movie, like Clue or Murder on the Orient Express, and it's not that. It kind of feels like that initially, specifically because every character plays like a different, is a very different archetype or whatever. But yeah, it doesn't end up being like that at all.
Nah, and it kind of threw me for a loop. To me, I think that kind of murders movies. I like when you watch a trailer and know what the movie's about. And we've had so many movies that we've reviewed in the past that kind of do that to me. So The Black Klansman, that movie just wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And now we're kind of here. Although both movies were decent, this one's definitely kind of better in my opinion. But one things that I kind of wanted to bring up right off the bat was what do you think the movie's about? Because this is the most interesting part to me, as far as the whole movie goes, is what do you actually think the movie's about?
I have no idea what I actually think it's about. I have no idea. Right. I think it's just, in a way, is kind of like a love letters to the 60s. Because all the characters do play prime 60s archetypes, and there is a lot of references to that time period, specifically with the news reports going on, the music being played, the stylistic choices of the movie. But that's kind of my reason for the movie exists, I guess. What it's actually about, I don't know. I wouldn't go as far as to say it really is about anything specific. There's no I don't know if there's like a greater meaning or anything.
That's kind of where I was gonna go with it, because like I think there is. I think
okay.
the movie itself, it does a couple things, and I think it's purposely ambiguous, but
Right.
like there's a few parts of the movie that really make me think what I'm about to say, which is that the movie is about like right and wrong, and the gray area that lies within that, and then
That's fair.
and then how that like the like process of redemption, the process of living a righteous life regardless of what's going on in your life and stuff. And so everybody that like was in hell, and everybody that like was there, like how did they redeem themselves by the end of the movie? And so, you know, the line in the movie itself is it's the line of right and wrong, you know. So like they shadow it with, you know, the Nevada side and the California side, and I believe Nevada's the evil side. That's actually where I think all the bad stuff happens. And then, you know, the California side's kind of like, because like I don't even think any killing happened on the California side. I think it was all Nevada, you know. And like, you know, it was my first time
It's hard
watching
to
the
tell
movie.
at the end there,
Right?
and this is a thing about this movie. I feel like it needs to be watched again, because going into it the first time, you think it's going to be something. You're getting all these clues laid out in a kind of random order, and by the end, you're like, oh shit! If I watch this again, I can put together this puzzle a little bit better than I could that first viewing. So I think that's another thing about this movie, is that it's kind of a pro and a con for it, is that it warrants a second viewing, like that being a pro. Like if you like it enough to be able to watch it a second time, then yeah, that's a pro. But at a con, it could be a big turn off to people who may just want to go to a movie, watch it once, and get everything that's going on, because it doesn't lay everything out, like very, like you said, it's very ambiguous, a lot of the things in this movie.
Right.
And it hides the details pretty close to his chest, and lets him go slowly and kind of methodically throughout the movie.
Right. And so that was like the most interesting thing to me is when they walked across the line. Now, they did some very specific camera angles every time somebody crossed the line. You know, so, you know, the cop, you know,
one person died in California, technically. The bellhop. He died in the middle.
Yeah, but there's a reason for that. And I was going to get to it later in the actual show. There's a reason he dies on the line, because he specifically dies on the line. You know, and remember, you know, I'm referencing like the half good, the half evil, you know, he dies on the line, and there's a specific reason he dies on the line. And the reason that I said that the movie's a little bit about redemption is because of the way he dies and how he dies on the line. But I kind of not ready for that part, because it's like it kind of just like starts at the end if we do it that way. And I kind of want to go down the rabbit hole as we go. But like, it was just really interesting when the movie ramps up, and, you know, he reports to his superiors and stuff. And like, you know, right from that point, the movie actually starts. So after he talks to the dude, and he's like, you know, you can see his heartstrings being pulled, and he's like, what's the right thing to do here? This dude yelled at me and said I wasn't supposed to do anything. I wasn't supposed to interfere. What's the actual right thing to do?
You're talking about John Hamm's character.
Yeah. The cop, the secret agent or whatever. You know, and he's kind of going through the motions, and he's like, all right, well, I'll just break everybody's car. I can do that.
Well, I mean, it to me, like, even before that, like when he was just searching his room and all the bugs, like, you don't know exactly what he's looking for or why he's doing it, but there's, like, you know, something's afoot.
Yeah, something's wrong, you know? And so it was like really interesting, because right before that scene where he gets shot, you know, like, and again, there's gonna be spoilers, so if you haven't seen this movie, you should catch this show after, you know, it's done, and
it'll
you've
be
seen
on
the movie.
YouTube and everything.
Right, go catch it there. Because like,
I don't want to, because like I don't want to ruin the movie really either. But if we're gonna talk about some things, we have to mention something.
Right. And this is kind of like an open discussion, what we thought about the movie, you know, what we thought was going on, and different things. But nevertheless, before that scene happens, before he gets shot, he stops, he thinks about it, he looks around, he goes, okay, well, what is the actual right thing to do in this situation? And then when he's thinking about it, you see him, he's right on the line. He's right on the line, you know, and he's like, should I go be this vigilante that my heart's telling me to be? You know, and like he spent a long time like kind of going through the motions of like what to do, you know, and I thought like the way he approached it did not feel very cop-like. It didn't feel genuine. It didn't feel like he was doing the right thing, which is why he got shot, you know, because, you know, he like walked in and he backhanded the shit out of that girl.
Yeah, but like
I was like, goodness gracious.
Another big part, especially to that scene, is all about perception, because from his perspective, obviously, she was in the wrong because he doesn't know the whole story. All he sees is a person tied to a bed, you know, a person just being tied to a bed, or not to a bed, to a chair. And it's really hard to think that anything other than foul play is going on in that situation, you know?
Right. And
especially because they were dragged out of the trunk. Like none of that looks like a good thing.
It doesn't, but I knew there was something more to that situation. Because if you actually look at the situation, she's not bruised. She doesn't look like abused in any kind of shape or form. She is tied up. She is kidnapped. But like, you know, there doesn't seem to be any kind of sexual play in that whole process. She's just kind of like, you know, and if he would have paid attention a little bit longer, you know, he would have actually probably, it would have came full circle. And like, actually, none of the bad events in this movie would have happened if the cop didn't overstep its bounds.
Right. Yeah, because that's what started everything. That was like the first domino falling down.
Right. And that was like really crazy to me, because as soon as you know, Emily was like, Rose, move. The way she moved, I was like, okay, this girl is like, she's disturbed. Like, there's something wrong with her. Because, like, she was like, you know, and then she shot him, and then she was like, oh, shit. Well, shit, sometimes you get shot. And I'm like, yo, he just attempted to save you, you know, even if it wasn't the truth. Like, he just attempted to save your life, you know, and any abuse that you're about to come under. And, you know, he died for it. And you're like, meh. You know, sometimes people get shot, you know, and I was like...
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's because of the, you know, what we find out later for her and her whole little cult thing.
Right, which was kind of... It wasn't a twist, but it was weird, you know? Like, you know, seeing how you mentioned it, like, I kind of wanted to talk about, like, kind of how shallow and surface level they went with so many of the characters. Like, by the end of it, like, I was really at that point to where I was like, yo, I'm really curious, like... the backstories of all these characters, because there's so many characters that like this, like the good thing about this, because I think this was done on purpose, and thanks Gaza for that host. I'm pretty sure it was done on purpose to where basically it's surface level, so everybody in the cast remains human, and you don't draw any clear lines of who's right, who's wrong, who's on the good side, who's on the bad side. Like, I think there's a really big reason that so many things are so ambiguous, you know? So, like, you know, I'm curious to what you think, you know? Because, like, I just didn't get enough.
To me, throughout the movie, there's only one character that is 100% on the bad side, and that's the Charles Manson, Chris Hemsworth character. He is the only person that, throughout the movie, is nothing but, like, just a terrible person.
Yeah.
He's the only one. Everybody else has their positives, their negatives. I think to be the only other person who I would say, like, while he is the epitome of evil, I would say that Darlene, played by Cynthia Erivo, she was the good in the movie.
Right.
She was like the 100% good person, whereas he's the 100% bad.
Well, see, I would argue that a little bit, but real quick, what's up, Jujubee? It's been a while. Thanks for stopping by and saying what's up.
Hey, Jujubee, didn't even see that.
So, I would personally say that she wasn't completely, like, in justice, you know, the whole, you know, pure being, you know, because I don't know if you've ever listened to anybody called, like, Jordan Peterson, and, like, he kind of has this spiel to where he does all these psychological, like, lectures, and he tells people how people are supposed to act, and he's like, you know, there's something about only being a pure nice person, and how that inherently is wrong, and how you need to be able to defend yourself, you need to be able to take care of yourself, you need to be able to stand up to demons in order to be the perfect human being, in a sense. And I know that's kind of like this long and I'm like dropping it on you, so it's like that takes a little time to think. But I think throughout that like process of her meeting the real evil and going, you know, I've been around for long enough to know what kind of weasel you are, and that's what you are. You're a snake in the grass, and you'll never be anything more because you're empty. And I think that was her redemption, because like everybody who survives in this movie, I think,
but I don't think she
themselves
really,
to a degree.
I don't even think she needed a redemption from anything. She wasn't doing anything. She never did anything throughout the movie inherently bad. The only time she ever struck or attacked someone was in self-defense.
Right, and that I love that part of the movie, by the way. That was an awesome part of the movie.
It causes you so off guard.
Yeah, you're like
you don't. Yeah.
I jumped. Like I was like, oh, and like he just hit the ground, and that was
right, because it was like going so well, and you know, from the angle you're seeing, you know, he's blocking it, and then cut to him getting smashed in the face.
Like, it was so crazy. Like, how did she know that was coming? Like, damn, dude. Like, and just to be that confident, like, just I know what I need to do, and just boom with his like no holds bar. Like, I don't know, that was like kind of an intense part of the movie for me, you know. But I just think that in general, she was trying to overcome, you know, the anxiety of being a weak person, and like, you know, that whole process has made her a stronger individual, I think.
Yeah, I could see that, but even still, I don't think, like, I still think that she was the good to Chris Hemsworth.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
The pure good to Chris Hemsworth, pure evil.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I can definitely agree with that.
Whereas everybody else is very towing the line back and forth.
So, the other thing, and this is kind of a pro for me, but at the same time, it's kind of a little different. This movie is thin, man. And by thin, I just feel like it has no fluff. It is so straight to the point. There's right. So little like extra in this movie.
The only fluff I would say in this movie is the side stuff going on with that tape. Like the mystery of the tape that's never really revealed, never really talked about what's actually on the tape. That's the fluff. That's what you get, I think, from the second viewing too, is the side story going on within the actual story.
Right. And I think it has real historical. I think they're actually referring to something very real and historical.
I was talking to my buddy, and
us.
We both came to the conclusion that we thought it was the sex tape between like John F. Kennedy and Marilyn Monroe.
Okay. That was kind of my guess, but I wasn't sure.
Because it was definitely sex. It had something to do with sex.
Right.
The political time seemed to line up properly. So it seemed like that's what they were doing, but it's hard to tell. And there's also who exactly owns the El Royale, right? Because he always says, you know, he sends these tapes to the owners, and they live somewhere in Washington. Who owns this hotel that all this like nefarious political escapades and sexcapades happen at?
Right. I kind of wanted them to tell us, though. Like, I don't know. I guess I'm just sad that I don't truly get the reference, because, you know, this feels like somebody's baby. Like, they held on to this script, or maybe it was out there and it finally got turned into a movie and something like that.
Well, like I said, it was written and directed by the same person. The person who wrote it also directed it, so definitely a passion project. And right. I mean, I'd never seen Cabin in the Woods, but I've heard kind of similar things about Cabin in the Woods that I have with Bad Times, where it's definitely not misleading, but it takes you for a ride.
Right. Yeah. And like the one thing I want to compliment is how well the cinema was actually done. I love how they shot every scene from everybody's perspective. Like, I wish more movies did that. And I imagine how bad that could actually go in a lot of situations, because you have to kind of explain a lot and so on and so forth. But I really enjoyed the way that was done. And like, something tells me that was all one take, and then that there was a cameraman behind each and every individual. And, you know, like, I don't know, this is so cool.
It wasn't. I'll just to let you know it was
No,
not.
it wasn't?
That
Okay.
would be, that's a cool thought to have.
Yeah, that it was just this giant
Right.
simulated or simultaneous like shot
Right.
to where it's like, you know, like you just have different perspective from different people and stuff, and you know, just kind of intense. So I kind of wanted to get into Miles a little bit. Like how'd you feel about Miles, man?
Miles being the
The bellhop,
right?
yeah.
He was an interesting character. I thought his whole story towards the end was a little shoehorned in, and kind of used as a device to get him out of that to get them out of that situation. But he was good. I thought he was he was a good character. He was just troubled, you know.
Okay. So this bleeds into the whole right and wrong thing. So the entire time you're like, oh, Miles is such a, like, he's got to be a creep. There's got to be something wrong with him. He's like,
right. Well, you find out early on that he's a junkie and shooting up heroin and stuff.
Right. But like, you know, like you think he's bad the entire movie, and like, you know, at the very end he's like, I've killed so many people, and then like, oh, Miles, how many have you killed? He's like 123, and you're like, oh gosh, this guy's crazy. I hope they get to the point, and then
They
boom,
they
take you to the war, and what that does to your brain right off the bat is you go, oh, he's not an evil dude, he's just a vet, you know, and it was this weird way of him going, you know, like there's so much gray in right and wrong. There's so much gray. And so you think he's this evil dude all up to the point to where you see him.
Because you expect that the 100, like, you know, all the kills he has done and all the terrible stuff he's considering, like what he's done at the El Royale, which it seems like in hindsight, his job at the El Royale was more of a hands-off approach, not a hands-on.
You know, and so now it instantly goes to your brain, oh, he's not actually a serial killer. He's actually just a dude who served in a war, had everybody die, and he killed a bunch of people because he was told to. And he has
crazy PTSD because of it.
Right.
That's why he did heroin.
Right. And so it's like, you know, you instantly think entirely different about his character. And I love how he did that. And I love how he set that up, you know. And then, you know, that whole process of him going through all those different things and saying all those things like, hey, I need to come clean, and I don't know how to come clean, you know. And then you walked into my life, and I've been meaning to go to church, but I just feel like a dirty human being, and I had to have the priest come to me in order to kind of relieve myself of all the guilt of all the people I killed, regardless of the reason I ended up killing them. And so, you know, at the end, which is why I kind of tied it in here, just because, you know, I thought this was amazing, you know, and he kind of went through the process of like absolving himself of all those different things, which is why he dies on the line. That's why he dies on the line, because he actually
doesn't, you know, he doesn't really absolve himself more as like the idea of being absolved by someone else comforts him into feeling like
he can forgive himself.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And so I thought that was such an amazing part of the movie itself, because like, I don't know, you never really see like such real kind of situations, you know, to where that felt very good to me. And, and you know, it was like probably my favorite part of the movie, you know, and I kind of jumped into it. I don't know why, but I don't know. I just liked it a lot.
That was good. I thought everything, like all the actors did a spectacular job. Like they all played their parts incredibly well. Everyone in that movie like made me believe in their character to some extent. So to that extent, like that's awesome. There's not a lot of movies where that happens, where every character is like spot on. But I guess because it's such a small ensemble cast, that it's a lot easier to do than you'd expect. Right.
I also thought there was some weird underlying things about love and what constitutes like okay love, because there was some like really twisted relationships, you know, with Emily and Rose, and then with Rose and Billy Lee, you know, and kind of like, you know, they mentioned a lot of nefarious kind of sex situations, you know, and it's like, I don't know, how do you feel about that? Even like throughout the whole movie, you know, what was the black girl's name? I forgot.
That's Darlene.
Darlene? You know,
Darlene and Jeff Bridges' character.
right, right.
He doesn't even
Darlene.
have. He doesn't even have a name. Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
he has a fake name, Father Flake.
Flynn. Flynn, yeah.
Yeah,
Like
Father
even
Flynn.
her, 90% of the time, she's singing about love, and I don't think that's a coincidence. I think there's a lot of situations kind of going for itself, but that's part of the reason why I wanted more of the backstories of the characters, because like the Emily and Rose with their dad really confused me because they don't spend a whole lot of time telling you which kid's which. So when you see the kid about to get abused, like, do you know which one that was? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
is it Emily or Rose?
Emily was the older sister.
Right.
Emily was the one who was getting abused, and then the dad was like, "Where's your sister at?" And then she hides her little sister under the bed, so he can't find her. So she takes more punishment because of it.
Right. And so it was like this weird thing to where I almost thought Darlene was going to get shot just because that song evoked so much emotion from her. And like it almost felt like in a weird way that she was singing to her. So she's like singing, and she's just like, you just want an honest human being to love you honestly, and like that's kind of like how that song made me feel. And then like it kind of rang true, because like that's why I think Rose ended up in the situation she ended up, is because she actually felt loved by an honest human being, which is why it was such a big deal. Yeah, Rose, her sister. Yeah, so it was like,
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely love throughout the movie too. You can even go to Jeff Bridges and Darlene, like Father Flake and Darlene. There's like a tension there between them as well. Early on and throughout the movie, they're kind of like a partnership, like a duo that kind of goes throughout from the very beginning to the very end.
right. I thought that was kind of really weird, and like this movie definitely deserves like a second viewing, because that thread is just so undertoned, and I really don't know how to feel about it.
Yeah, a lot of this movie, like I said, a lot of this movie is undertoned, I think, and that's why I think it almost needs that second viewing to have a full grasp of the movie.
Right.
Which, like I said, good and bad. I like that, but I could see why a lot of other people would not like it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have too much else to say. I have good things, great music. I thought Cynthia Erivo has a really good voice. She sang a little bit much in the movie. I felt like there was too many scenes that were kind of driven by her singing. But she was such a good singer, it didn't really bother me too much.
Well, I think every song she sung was perfectly placed. I think there's a reason that she's singing those songs with those words. And
it's
so
very probable.
So I think that the reasons that they're there, and the reasons that like, you're kind of like, oh, that's a lot of singing, is simply because like we weren't picking up the references. So like the only song that I actually picked up, like, oh, this actually has meaning, was the one I was talking about with Emily, to where she was singing, and it had double meaning. Hey, she's obviously covering for, Father Flynn, so, or, but like in reality, it seems like she's singing to Emily and telling Emily like how she needs to redeem her soul from all the pain and suffering that she went through as a child, and like, that was just, it was just really, really interesting, in a lot of different ways, but there's like a few questions that I feel like we're both not really going to be able to answer, but you already talked about one, which is the whole what's on the tape, but the other one is like, who are the managers? Like, I really was hoping I was going to know who the managers were.
All we know is that they're in Washington somewhere. So my guess is it has something to do with politics, being that Miles told us a lot about like the people who would stay at the El Royale and the things he would record. So I'm guessing it has to do something with politics, just being the place being Washington D.C. and then all that back. But there's no one knows. Like I don't know either. That was another thing I was wondering about as well. Or who exactly who did John Hamm's character really work for? We know he was a cop of some sort, but was he like FBI, CIA? He clearly was trying to go further than he even realized.
Right.
And since he was, ousted so quickly, you didn't really get an idea of what his whole story was.
Right. And I kind of hate that. I'm guessing they were only looking for the film that, Miles had hid.
Right.
I'm thinking that was the only thing that he was actually there to look for, but I don't know. I was kind of hoping that it would be a little bit more than that, but like you said, he gets.
I mean, and once again,
so fast.
He might have been looking for more than that. We really don't know because we don't know what's on that film, like if it was the actual film he was looking for, or B, he didn't John Hamm didn't make it far enough into the movie to really give us the whole idea of what his goals were.
Right. I thought it was strange that he was that bold and beautiful. He just ran around that hotel like he owned it, and I knew he saw
when he first at the very beginning.
Yeah, it was just weird how he kind of owned the space the way he did, because I felt like the original scheme when I first saw him. I was like, okay, that kind of feels like an act. So and then later on I was like, oh, he was purposely trying to make people dislike him, because what happens when people dislike you is they stay away from you. And so,
because he wanted his space to do his,
do his thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I believe the honeymoon suite was actually closest to the lobby, so there was less, issues traveling from the lobby and exploring all the different places, because there was just less space he had to travel. So I don't know. Overall, it was just a really interesting movie, and for me, it was so short-lived, and I felt like we keep saying, the second viewing would probably do it a lot more justice, but I feel like this was kind of supposed to be a little bit of a longer movie, and that
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it kind of was, it definitely didn't go by super fast, and I don't mean that in a down sense, like it dragged on or anything, but it definitely felt like it was kind of a longer movie. I think it was probably over 2 hours. Let me take a look to make sure. I'm pretty sure I still have it open here.
Right. I mean, to be fair, me personally, I think it could do with a little bit more time.
It was 2.5 hours long.
It didn't feel like that. Maybe I just enjoyed it so much, but
and that's what happens sometimes. Sometimes you're just into it. I was really into it too, but there was definitely times where I was like, man, this movie is kind of long. It was a lot longer than I was expecting it to be, for sure. Because you don't usually see at least nowadays, you don't see regular movies go 2.5 hours. The only ones you see go 2.5 hours are movies in a longer series, or big, the Marvel movies. You could see doing that sometimes, but even not them that often, or the Harry Potter movies, or Lord of the Rings or whatever. You don't see a lot of just kind of regular one-off movies going that long.
Right. I agree. So I have one final question, because this was probably one of the weirdest things for me in the movie, was the first scene where the guy gets shot in the back.
Okay.
That was film, right? That was recorded by Royale, right?
Yeah, you would guess. You would think.
Yeah, the only reason I'm saying that is because
just
the
because
whole
of
part,
the angle, right?
the angle and the texture, and how it never changes frame or anything like that. It's just clearly a tripod. It's recording, and it has that old-fashioned film look.
Yeah.
And
so yeah, I would say I guess so. I didn't even think about that, but yes, I do think now in hindsight, I do think that.
So what's weird about that is
that nobody grabbed the money.
Correct.
Well, here's the thing. So we're seeing it from that perspective, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's being recorded. As you know, there was only one camera there actually recording, and he would move it depending on where they were recording from. So I think that scene was shot for our enjoyment, and I don't think that the owners knew of that. I don't think they were actually filming that, but we were seeing it from the perspective of that room.
Okay, because that was the one thing that I questioned.
Right, because why wouldn't they just take the money themselves?
Correct. It was one of those situations where I was like, okay, you had a murder in this room. It's videotaped, which means you're actually going to watch the film of some nobody, and you're not going to take the money. Somebody takes the time to remove the entire room, pulls up the floor, takes a red bag. You're like, Wonder what could be in the bag, you know? And I was like, you know, because like that's kind of how I got when I saw the camera at first, and I realized that there was those double mirrors. I was like, oh, so they're actually recording, you know? And I was like,
Yeah. But it's that's the thing. It's not recording at all times, every room. He only like he says, he only records who the owners tell him to record, meaning
right,
that probably they didn't know who this guy was. They didn't know what the heck was going on, so they had no reason to
record them.
right because they do. It seemed like it was mostly political things.
Right, because that was kind of what I was kind of like at the end of the movie. I was kind of like, all right, well, I wonder what that scene was about, because I got the impression that it was recorded just simply because of the way it was framed and so on and so forth, and that could have just been like, hey, this was an older time and now we're in present day, but even still, that was a little weird the way that was kind of done, and I think there's probably some deeper meaning. I just don't know.
Curious about with that scene is what happened to the third guy, like the shooter, because I guess that's the third guy from when they do the robbery.
Yeah, that was my guess.
Yeah, that's exactly what I guessed too, but we don't know what became of him. I guess he died at some point.
I have no idea, because like it didn't seem like that dude was working for anybody. It seemed like Flynn was the leader, and so
right, yeah,
you know, I'm like I was kind of confused too. But the way he let him in the room, I was just like, that's got to be
the guy it had to be the guy, the other guy. So he was just like, oh, you know, come in because.
But then again, that makes less sense because he didn't have the money. So it's like, why would you kill him before you have the money? Unless the dude was just dumb. And they do kind of allude that he is dumb.
That's the thing. They kind of show him being a little dumb and slow and not really getting things during the robbery itself.
Right. So it was like, there could be that aspect.
He's just sloppy. He was like, I'm just going to shoot him and grab the money. Because to be fair, why would you think that he buried it under the floorboards? You know, that's like not a place. Especially when I see rug on the ground, the first thing I'm not going to think is like, oh, let me rip up this rug and check the wood underneath.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't do that. But like, I don't know, any reasonable person, after you commit a robbery and you're like, all right, I'm just going to rob the dudes that helped me rob this, you know, truck. You know, it's like, all right, you should probably know where the money is first. You know, you don't have the money. Like, why?
Greed and loose ends. Yeah, but like we said, we found out earlier, or well, we found out later that he's kind of sloppy. So I think that's why it was like that. I just want to know what his fate was, you know?
Death and destruction, hell, you know, like. But
not that. I mean, like you just don't see him anymore throughout the movie, and it doesn't seem like Flynn really gave a shit what happened to him. He just wanted.
He probably forgot. To be fair.
I mean, I'm sure he didn't. Maybe he just never knew about the murder. I mean, that's possible. He knew that his brother was going, like they had the plan to go to the El Royale, and he never met up with his brother again. So he knew he was dead, but maybe he just didn't know how he died.
That could be the case, but in reality, that story's there because that's Flynn's redemption. He didn't go there for the money. He went there because his brother died, you know, doing what he told him to do, and he felt that his last, you know, few months of life needed to be done doing something to redeem the wrongs he did and got his brother killed, basically. And like, you know, that's his redemption story, because each and every character, again, that survived had a redemption story. I guess I forgot to bring it up, but the only other thing that I would want to say is this movie was brilliantly shot. I liked every scene. I liked the way they came about it. I liked the mood.
Actually, even the characters who do die kind of have a redemption. The only one who doesn't is Chris Hemsworth. Like John Hamm does, because even though he is in the wrong for jumping into that room, he is thinking the right way. Like he is thinking properly. So that's kind of his redemption, because he's the first one up to like nefarious things. And then Jeff Bridges doesn't die. Emily, Dakota Johnson's character, does kind of have a redeeming moment for herself when she talks to the whole group while they're like tied up and stuff. Also, her getting shot in the face really caught me off guard as well, because I just wasn't expecting it to go like him just be like, oh, you lost, bang.
Right. I don't remember if I jumped or not. It was sudden for sure, but...
Well, I thought Miles was gonna die.
I did too.
That's the way it's set up. Like the way is like, oh, sorry, Miles, you're dead. But then it was just like, bang.
I even loved his Two-Face situation, dude. There were so many
Mhm.
things going on with the Miles character.
Yeah.
I just love his character, man, and the way he turned out in the show or in the movie.
Mhm.
So, but like I just love how everything was shot. There wasn't a scene that I thought was like not interesting,
Yeah.
you know. And there were so many like little mental hacks that I was like, you know, that happened for a reason. So, you know, one last thing before we go into our like closing statements and everything would be like when she cracked him with the wine bottle, she never goes back to get her shoes.
Right.
I mean, I think there's more to that, you know. I don't think that's a mistake, you know.
Right.
And so I thought that was really, really weird.
I think I don't know what all of that is. I think part of the reason is because they were heels, and it is very difficult to run, specifically in the rain, in heels. So after she clocked him, she kind of started running and packing to get the fuck out of there. So I think that's part of the reason why. Also, you know, she ended up doing some stealthy stuff, and it's very hard to be stealth when you're clippity clomping around in heels.
That's kind of fair. Maybe there isn't anything significant. It was just the way it was shot and how they show it later on, to where you know
and
he
I
gets
think
clocked.
that's also a reason why she left the shoes there. Was when she went to pop them, she didn't want to be, you know, give up her position.
Right. She just wanted to get the F out, you know, but
Yeah,
it was just.
she thought she was about to get diddled, smacked him in the head, and yeah, and got GTF'd owed.
Right. Yeah, I like the way you said that.
Well, that's because that's what he said. Like when he was like
Right.
apologizing to her, he was like, "Hey, I wasn't gonna diddle you.
I laughed then too.
I just wanted to knock you out so I could go to your room and dig up my money, and that was it.
Then I
And I
would be
didn't
on
have
my
to hurt
way.
you."
Right. So I don't know. So I guess we'll go into the final grading of today's movie. I'm gonna go ahead and say I would give it an 8 out of 10. I think it was a wonderful movie. I think it's like a cinema treasure in so many different ways. Hopefully more people actually see the movie. I don't think it's doing bad, but you know it definitely deserves more praise.
It's doing probably very middle of the pack, if anything, but it was a
Right.
very good movie. And
Yeah.
like I said, everybody in the cast really acts their ass off throughout this entire movie.
Yeah,
Like everyone is good. Everyone is so good.
Chris really turned on the like Johnny Depp / like creepiness.
Dude, just the fucking Charles Manson, man. That's exactly. He was the brotherly love, but also.
I'll kill you.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, he just all the like hands back, chest out. You know, like bare chest, like walk through anything type of situation. It was just weird. It's just weird. You know?
Forcing two people to fight so they could share a bed with him.
Very nice. But I guess that'll do it for
also,
us.
I want to know. That's another thing. Oh, I didn't give my review yet, but that's besides the point. I was also curious about the murders. I want to know more about the murders that what's her name committed, Rose.
Yeah, like
that she was the one who did the murders that they were talking about on the news.
I think they just disrespected Johnny Lee. I think that's all it was.
Billy Lee?
Billy Lee, yeah, Billy Lee. Sorry.
But yeah, anyway, my review of the movie is that definitely go see it. I'm gonna switch it up from now on. I'm not just gonna give a no. I'm gonna add a little bit of a score to it.
Ooh.
I know. I find myself saying yeah to everything, even things I don't like. So now I have to preface it with like also a sort of score.
Okay.
So out of a 5-star scale. And I'm gonna say this is a 4-star yes in my book.
I like that. I like the change up.
Well, just because like I noticed it when we did Venom, where I was like, yeah, see the movie, it's terrible. See the movie. So like that when I'd be like yes, but 2 stars or like something like that. Right. Whereas this was like yes, and it's also a genuinely good movie, higher score.
Right. But that'll do it for us. Thank you guys. The next episode will be our coming soon episode of November. I'm pretty sure there's a fair amount of interesting things coming out in November.
Yep. Also, next episode is going to be around Halloween, so I'll probably be in my Halloween costume for the episode, just for the yeses and
kicks and giggles
for the holiday. You're welcome to join me. You don't have to, but I'll be in a Halloween costume.
I won't have a costume, so you know.
I mean, throw on some sunglasses. You could be the cooler Daniel.
I like it. I like it. If I had sunglasses, but
memes.
All right, but it's been good. It's been fun. Thank you guys for coming out. Until next time, love and appreciation.